Welcome everyone back to this episode of Safari Smart Thinking. Today we are talking about the economy that slavery built, 1916. Imagine this, your grandmother. She's always been there for you, cooking for you, buying gifts for you, and being there for a shoulder when you need to cry on. But what if I told you only 75 years earlier she would have been a slave? A slave picking cotton in rural areas of Alabama or Louisiana. Think about that. The main focus of this PowerPoint wasn't just about what we already know about slavery, the punishments, the mistreatment, and the horrible pay and protection of African American people, but more so about how the economy system was built off of their backs. Trade, money, and power can also be surrounded by this thing, the slave trade. What was unclear to me though was with so many other plantations such as cotton, rice, sugarcane, and of course tobacco were popular during this time, why was cotton number one? Wouldn't you need more things like sugar for baking, tobacco for smoking, and rice for eating? But why was cotton so important? Why? Because it was one of the first things during the international trade. You're trading cotton with other countries like China, India, and even Australia. So many things being traded around. Why not trade human beings, actual people, which have the same value as a crop or as a product that was grown? So you can say, putting up, oh, I say cotton is worth $300. Well, I have a slave that can pick that cotton for you that's worth even more. Hearing about this podcast, there were so many things that I hadn't heard before. I didn't know that actual slaves were used as collateral on mortgages. If a plantation owner didn't have the money right then and there to purchase said land, they would use slaves as collateral, meaning I'm a plantation owner and I have slaves. I'll put these slaves up as collateral towards the land that I want to purchase. And if anything were to happen, I wasn't able to pay for the land or something else came up, the bank would take those slaves as money. So then the bank would own slaves. And that's mostly how things went during that time. What was also new to me was I'm still caught up and surprised on how tobacco wasn't even that much a big business, but it was such a necessity and a need. I also didn't know that every 3 years there had to be a new place to grow cotton. They talked about in a video that every 3 years the land for which cotton was grown from would eventually deplete, no longer exist, and you would no longer be able to grow cotton on it. So that was a big push for a lot of slave owners, plantation owners to say, why just stay in Alabama, Mississippi, when we can go to places like Texas, we can go to Louisiana, we can go to Atlanta, Georgia is what I meant to say, and grow these crops. Expanding that territory of cotton only meant one thing: you needed more slaves. Slave trade, business economy trade, going over to certain parts of the world and bringing people to do labor so that you can have a product to sell for people for that labor to get more labor. Think about it this way: you're a slave in Alabama and you're picking cotton. Now, you pick so much cotton, that's your total for today. Anything under the recommended amount, you get beaten. Anything more than the recommended amount, you are then, from that moment on forward, expected to pick that amount. Now, prices in London of shirts made from full cotton have gone up. What does that mean for you as a slave? You're doing twice the work, twice as hard, and twice as fast to get that demand in London that they need for their clothes or anything else they're making of cotton. You have the bad end of the deal, because now you're forced to pick cotton all day to make up for the demand that they need for their clothes in London. Anything that I would want to explore more about, I would say more about this aspect that slaves were used as collateral and money. These human beings, actual human beings that live and breathe, were put up as cash value, were worth more sometimes than cash value. And that's something that I personally want to investigate more on. How much was a man? How much was a woman? How much were children? Could you say set up only maybe 5 of your best slaves up as collateral? Was there a certain amount? Did they have to be purely African? Could they be mulatto? So many things of that nature that you just really wonder and that you want to get more research about. And also, like I said before, with the cotton being so high in demand, how were rice? You know, what about rice? What about tobacco? How was their value in the economy during that time? Was there a lot of international trade, or was there mostly local? One connection that I have between the outside world and the podcast 1916 is that we as black people hold more value than we think. You hear a lot about people saying, buy black, buy more black. And that's one reason and one reason only. We are money makers. We have business since the day we came to this country, and we will always be worth much, much more than they expect us to be. A lot of my friends have companies. I know a lot of people that sell products, and it's always buy black, buy black. You would do it for your white counterpart. You would go into Macy's and spend hundreds of dollars, but you wouldn't go into your local clothing store that's black owned and spend $20. Why is that? Why can't we as a people come together not only to be united, but to have a higher advantage of economics in this system? And I'm going to tell you the truth. If black people were to spend their money and invest their time and their money and energy into other black people and black businesses, there wouldn't be any Google and Amazon so high up in value if our own technology companies aren't high in value. That may sound a little strange to you, but I'm really trying to make a connection. If you buy black, you increase the black value. You increase the property value for us. Meaning that when you go and you spend $100 at JCPenney or even at a local Food Sonic, Chick-fil-A, when you could invest that money into your local barbershop, you can invest that money into your local food pantry, you can invest that money and grow your own business, grow your people's own business. Think of it like this: Southern University. Now, we don't have the best things, and we don't always have the most up-to-date things. Why is that? Because more black people need to invest their money in these HBCUs. You look around and you look at Harvard, and you look at Yale, and you look at UCLA. What is that? And LSU. That is alumni, people from a while ago, people that have made success in their life, donating back to their own people, their alma maters, in their own kind. Why can't black people do the same? Why can't black people say, we're going to invest our time, our energy, and our money back into our own people so that we don't have to be, oh, LSU has this and Southern doesn't have that. It should be, well, Southern has this and LSU doesn't even have that. And that's one of the things that I could say is a connection for me. And then the last thing, a topic or experience that has happened in my personal life, I've seen it and I've heard it before. Slavery and things about slavery. Having grandparents that are old enough to have had. And the last thing I want to talk about today is my personal experience as being a African American black woman. In just the African American period, I have had people in my family who unfortunately were slaves, and hearing the stories from my great grandmother about the things that she witnessed on a slave plantation really helped me understand that this did not happen too long ago. It didn't happen hundreds of years ago. It happened, it did happen 100 years ago, but it hit so close to where even my own dad was able to experience the awfulness of laws like segregation and Jim Crow. So, and the last thing I just want to say about this podcast is that I feel like everyone, including African American women, men, kids, everyone should take the time to learn what really went on and what really happened during this slave trade, and that it wasn't just about bringing people over from another country to do the labor that the Americans didn't want to do, but it's more about we're making an economy and making trade and creating America. So thank you for coming and watching my video. Hope to see you back on the next time that I do this presentation or any other presentation. And thank you for taking the time out your day to listen to me. And you have a wonderful day. And again, my name is Safari Thompson, and I am a business marketing manager from Houston, Texas.